Hey everyone, this is January 20th, 2022. Welcome to our first meetup of the year. Thank you all for being here. We got a couple of great talks today, and we're going to start off with Abhi. Abhi is the creator of OWASP Snow project. He's currently working as a senior security consultant in the DevSecOps division of SecurityCompass, which is in Toronto. You probably would have heard Abhi's name for some of his other projects like OWASP Mantra, OWASP Bricks, OWASP TimeGap Theory, TinyBirdCTF, AppSecGames, Attackers and Friends, XSS Train, Exploit Me Rest, Bricktown, and web app security testing with browsers. That's incredible. Such a huge list of accomplishments. Abhi's here to launch his latest project, OWASP Snow. It's an open source tool for defending against shoulder surfing. Think of Snow as software version of Privacy Screen Protector. Spoiler alert, if you're curious, I want to give Snow a try before the session. He had provided all that information at Privacy Snow. Just a note, I want to make sure that we knew that no technical knowledge is required to attend this session. It's going to be a defensive security session. And unfortunately, we're not going to expect any O days today. Maybe in a future session, he'll provide some O days for us. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it off to Abhi. Thank you so much for speaking here.
Thank you for having me. Before we start, thanks to Adarsh, Shariga, and Aki for helping me with this project. Also, a small disclaimer that I'm here on my own. All opinions are on my own. You deserve privacy. Let me start with that. I am here today to launch a new OWASP project called OWASP Snow. The website for this project is OWASP privacysnow.com. Most of you must be knowing what is in this picture. It is not only a screen guard, but also a privacy protector. You buy this screen guard from privacy protector from the shop, apply it on your phone, and suddenly you have some privacy. This thin layer of glass or plastic, it reduces the screen's viewing angle so that people who are not directly in front of the screen won't be able to see anything. I mean anything on the screen, not everything around. It would be funny if you could make everyone around you blind by installing a screen guard on your phone. We are not there yet. This screen guard protects what's on the screen. It has no control over anything else happening outside. There is a reason why not many people are using these screen guards. It's not because they don't want privacy. No. First of all, you need to spend money to actually buy this screen guard, screen privacy protector. The second problem is with the viewing angle. It really affects the viewing angle of the screen. So if it is in a public place, you want privacy, you are protecting it with a screen guard, great. But you go back home and you want to watch a movie with your friends or family, and suddenly it can block you from doing that because people who are sitting directly in front of the screen is the only person who can see what is on the screen. Then there is an alternative way to prevent that problem. There are screen guards available which you can easily peel them off, but it is not easy to reinstall them if you peel them off, because dust, air bubbles, all of them can easily get trapped between the screen guard and the screen, and over time it can get really ugly. Another problem is with the size. You can't get a size that fits for your screen if it is a special device. If it is a commonly used device, yes, you can get it. But things get much more complicated if you have a notch on your phone. Then cutting a notch over there can be difficult. Some people buy a bigger privacy screen guard and then they cut them with scissors to make it fit on their screen. So there are workarounds, but still it's not elegant. That's why there is a need of a software version of this privacy screen guard. OWASP Snow is a software version of the privacy screen guard. You can turn it on and off by clicking on a button. What happens when you click on that button is that it will blur the whole screen. And when you move the mouse over, whatever underneath, immediately underneath that cursor, that will get unblurred, and you can see that. So if somebody is looking at your screen from your side, they won't be able to see what is happening on the screen. It will be all blurred. But you know where your mouse cursor is, so immediately underneath that you can see what's going on, and you can easily turn this off. You just have to click on the button again, and it will get turned off. There are many advantages with a software version of the privacy screen guard. First of all, it is free. Second, it won't affect viewing angles. It can be easily turned on and off. Also, it fits any screen, whether it is your phone, laptop, or TV. No matter what, Snow can fit your screen. One word of caution, though, Snow won't give you 100% privacy. People looking over your shoulder can still see some elements on screen. For example, they can see how your fingers move on your mobile keyboard. So they may be able to make an educated guess on which keys you press. So there is no protection there. Also, Snow just protects you from shoulder surfing. So if you connect to an insecure wireless network, that may leak the data, and Snow doesn't have any control over that. But Snow can improve your privacy in some cases. The picture you are seeing on your left-hand side is two people talking to each other using lover's phone. You must have made a similar version using cups and threads when you were kids. The picture on the right is an old telephone. Why I am showing this? They are both designed with privacy in mind. There is a reason why telephones uses an earpiece instead of a loudspeaker. Kids uses cups to make a lover's phone, not dish antennas. In 2022, we are building software with payment, health, and other sensitive information, but with no safeguards against shoulder surfing. All I'm saying is you deserve something better. Privacy is a right, not a privilege. On Chromium-based browsers, you can install the Super Snow extension to claim your privacy. We have an experimental version of Snow available for Microsoft's Windows operating system as well. If you are a web developer like me, you can embed JavaScript file and HTML code on your website to provide Snow as a feature to all of the customers. You can get this by going to privacysnow.com, and you can see download this privacy-snow.js file. Snow is not yet on Firefox, Mac, Android, or iOS. I'm also not planning to create for Snow for these platforms simply because I don't know how to code on these platforms. However, OWASP Snow is an open source project. So if someone is kind enough to spend some of their time and code something for any of these platforms, please let me know. I'll update the website with links to them. You can use Snow at work. You can use Snow when you are in transit, say a GO train or a bus. One of the driving force for me to build OWASP Snow was an incident in Delhi Metro. Before moving to Toronto, I used to I used to live in Delhi, which is the capital of India. There I used to travel by a train. It is called Delhi Metro. And in that, whenever I use a phone, people used to peek over my shoulders to see what is on the screen. And at that time itself, I was thinking we need a solution for this. And eventually, over time, that idea was planted at that time. Then later on, I came up with this idea, and that's how I created OWASP Snow. So yeah, you can use this at train or bus or train. You can also use Snow at home. Basically, you can use Snow wherever you want some privacy. The website for Snow is privacysnow.com. You can download the Windows version, the Google Chromium version, or the JavaScript version from this website. And you can also find more details about the project by heading to privacysnow.com. And that's it. All I want to say is you deserve privacy and you deserve Snow.
I would love to. How does it run? Like how does it function underneath the hood? Tell us more of how the architectural decisions that you made and that sort of stuff, if you don't mind.
Sure. I built the Chromium version, and it is a simple JavaScript, and I don't think it is more than 10 or 15 KB in size. Basically, what it does is that it is selecting all the elements on the screen and applying a CSS property, a style sheet property to make all of them blurred. Then that is the first thing it does. And the second thing, it checks where the mouse cursor is. And immediately what is underneath that, we are making the removing the blur, removing that CSS property that makes it blurred. Thus making it visible. That's what I'm doing on the Chromium version. The Windows version, I have no clue how it runs, because my brother Aki developed it. I was saying, hey, I'm going to launch this project, and he said, hey, I know how to code in Windows, so I can make a Windows version. On phone, we don't have any implementation yet, but what I think is that if someone were to implement that, there is no concept of mouse cursor there. So I think it has to happen like when somebody touches on the screen, whatever underneath that needs to get unblurred. Not the best experience, but sometimes I think you have to balance between your privacy and the user friendliness.
Totally agree. Finding that right balance between usability and privacy is always difficult, but it looks like a fantastic project. Did other folks have questions? Feel free to unmute and ask Abhi questions. I can ask the questions. Would it work for a user who is only using a keyboard to navigate a website, like for accessibility reasons?
Lorena, great question. Over the time, I learned about accessibility and stuff and the importance of that, and I usually go to people and advocate on that. But yeah, this time I'm realizing that I never thought of that when I'm designing Snow, and I think that is something I should be revisiting on. And yeah, what I can do is that once after this session, I will go back and see how I can improve accessibility on the project. I do not get much such feedback. So thanks a lot, Lorena. I really appreciate that feedback. I'll work on that. Thanks again.
It would be cool, I think, if you tracked where the user is actually looking through, like the eye movement, and unblurred that part, at least on the phone.
That's a good idea. I want to, yeah, one thing I want to make sure is that when I'm capturing, that means their front camera needs to be on, and I need to ask for more permissions. And then you are collecting that data, and whether people would be comfortable or not would be a question. But people can always turn that feature off, or I can give two versions, one that uses eye tracking and the other one not using. So it is good to have options. So yeah, that's a great feedback. I love that. I have seen some projects, some JavaScript projects tracking eyes and doing some stuff. So I think I just need to do some basic integrations, and it can be super useful. Thanks.
I wonder how accurate they are. I've looked at prototypes, but I'm not, or at least at videos of prototypes, I'm not sure how accurate those libraries or systems are.
Yeah, so I'm coming from a threat modeling background, and so when I think about this, what I'm back in my mind, what I'm thinking is that, hey, how I am going to know that it is the right person? Because someone else can be standing behind me, and my software may scan their eyes and show those parts as well, and that would defeat the purpose of Snow. Then I have a solution for that as well. I need to constantly scan the retina and authenticate the user to make sure that this is the right person. I think in a way it's a cat and mouse game, but yeah, there are ways to improve. It's a good idea, and maybe once I do that, I can tell people that, hey, this is how I built the tool, and this is the security journey, right? So cool.
If there are no more questions, we can move on to Julia's. Oh, good. We have more questions. Does it work on split screen? If we're reading a PDF and we want to blur rest all things, the screen, like tabs and other things, does it work?
Great questions, Madhvik. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Does it work on split screen? The Windows version works on split screen. I have personally tested that. The Chromium version, I think it is per window. So yes, if you have multiple windows, you can turn that on, and I think it will work. No, in Chromium version, it is per tab. So it can work. Then the second question is, if we are reading a PDF and we want to blur rest of the things on the screen, like tabs and other things, does it work? Not with the Chromium version, but with Windows version, yes, you can. You can basically read a PDF. With Windows version, what's happening is that we are actually creating tiles all over the screen. So you can customize the number of tiles. and you can make the tiles small or very big. So when you read a PDF, if you move your cursor over a particular part of the screen, there will be a square portion where things will get visible, and rest of them will be blurred, including your browser tabs or start menu or clock and everything.
Abhi, what did it take to make it an OWASP project?
Why did I make it an OWASP?
Well, why would be one question, but also like how do you make a project an OWASP project?
Okay. I want to come to I want to answer that question, but I will answer a few other questions as well that
Sure.
that people ask. So one thing why I created this project is I have been creating lots of projects throughout my career, and all of them were mostly offensive security projects. And when I started threat modeling, then I realized that there is a defending side, and people are not releasing much projects on that side, since it is not that cool. You don't get much attention. And but those tools are needed as well, right? And privacy needs to be improved. So those type of projects are needed. They don't, those people who are developing these security or defending tools are, especially the free versions of them and open source versions of them, are unsung heroes of industries. They don't get much attention, but they are much needed. And I wanted to build something like that, something to improve the privacy. So that's why I created this project, and I in future as well, I want to create defending projects, something to improve security of people. So there is that. Now, why I decided to take it to OWASP is purely reachability. So when I create a project, these defensive projects are not that celebrated. People don't talk about it much. But if I create a 0 day, people talk about it. People create videos on it. So the public, if I release this project on my own and I just post it on my Twitter or LinkedIn, maybe 5 or 6 people will see it. But if it is an OWASP project, I get immediate attention from a bigger audience, and that's one benefit these project developers can get, because you don't have to spend a lot of time marketing these things. You can actually spend that time on developing or making the adding new features. So you can use that time for that. Now, how do you start an OWASP project? OWASP is an open body. So what you do is that if you go to OWASP.org website, there is a on the homepage itself, I think if you go to the projects tab, there's a start new OWASP project link. If you go there, you can fill up form about a project idea. So if it is just an idea, you can just post that idea. Or if you, in my case, I had all of them built, so I filled in that idea. And there is a body who reviews them, and they may ask a couple of questions, and then they decide, hey, whether OWASP wants to take this project or not. If it is just an idea, once it is there, OWASP has a Slack channel and other mailing lists and many other avenues. You can go there, present it there, and people. There are many young people who wants to contribute to these projects, and they may help to make that dream alive. So you get that. If it is a now already established project, you can present in meetups like these, or you can go to OWASP conferences and present them. So you immediately get an audience or a venue for presenting them. So those are great. OWASP is mainly focused on web applications. And so if you create a project, say, for example, network security or forensics, you may not get buy-in from when you submit that project in OWASP, you may not get a buy-in from there. So just keep that in mind. Web, mobile, those type of projects are welcome in OWASP. Okay, there are. There is a question about the repository. The Chrome extension, it is in the official GitHub repository of OWASP. I think, I'm not sure, I will release it otherwise. Basically, for all the Chromium extensions, you can actually download there are methods to download it if you want to get the source, but I don't want you to go do some hacking to do that. I will release the Chromium extension. I will open source it as well if it is not already. I don't remember. The Windows version is already up on GitHub. I can see that it is already shared in the chat. The URL is github.com/akhimb/snow, and that is the Windows version. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I don't know who posted that question, but thanks for answering that, Tobias.
Yeah, I totally understand the motivation of it. I remember many years ago, I traveled the Delhi metro, and yeah, there's a very lack of privacy. Definitely don't want to go. Highly recommend you don't travel during rush hours. It's quite crazy doing that. But thank you so much, Abhi. Really appreciate you sharing all this, sharing it with the community, sharing with our OWASP Vancouver community as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where Snow goes in the future. Okay. For the second talk of tonight.
Oh, someone has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Rowena?
Oh, no, I didn't have a question. I'm sorry. I just was clapping. That was an icon. I just
Oh, it's clapping. Clapping. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abhi. Clapping.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really good.
When I was holding on to this project for some time, thinking that I can present it somewhere on a physical conference. And when I go to bed every day after trying out different versions of the project, I always imagined presenting it somewhere and me getting a standing ovation. So yeah, thank you, Ravina. You read my mind, and I'm going to tell my wife immediately after the session that, hey, someone actually decided to clap. So thank you. It means a lot to me. Yeah, it does.
That's great, and great work. We all appreciate it. For the second talk of today, Julius, he's been long obsessed with Java jar files. He's a primary author on a 40-page academic journal article all about identifying jar files. And in the last 4 years, he's worked as co-founder and CTO of Mergebase, which is a Vancouver-based application security company devoted to jar files, NPMs, DLLs, and all sorts of files. As you can see, Julius has really branched out lately. Julius is the author of a leading Log4J detector, and I know that we all love all things Log4J. So welcome, Julius, and thank you for speaking at OWASP Vancouver.
Oh, thank you for that, that fantastic introduction. So everyone can hear me okay? And I don't have a slide deck. Instead, I'm just gonna go into the madness that is my brain and my computer. So yeah, let's begin. And I'm hoping for a pretty interactive session. So if people, there's a lot of people here, 20 people, but if you guys want to unmic and just start shooting questions in, because I'm going to start out, I'm going to just be like, so how would you look for Log4j on your file system? How would you look for Log4j, right? Like, I just want to start with that. You know, maybe I should, let's see. Oh, we've got some claps in the chat. Okay, I think that was for the previous presentation. I'm sad to say. yeah, and I'm just going to share my whole desktop, right? You can just see some of the insane things I was doing recently. But this talk, I mean, the theme of this talk really is this, right? So anyone have any ideas? What would you do? I mean, what did you do?
Read an academic paper on jar files.
That you did that? That's the first thing you did. You're like, oh no, I gotta find
No. You said
Log4J.
what you would do.
And so you went and you read this paper, right?
Of course.
That's my maiden name. I married and then went with my wife's last name.
One way we tried to socialize it is go look at basically start with a known inventory, right? It could either be software, it could be third-party libraries, it could be your people, right? Who are all the Java developers? And then go from there and just start whittling away at it, right?
Yeah, so just use every data source available to you, including just people who know.
Well, I don't want to say, yeah, not every data source, but every known good inventory, right? And you got a couple, you can go for code or you can go for people, right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to that stupid old saying everybody hears in every company, people, process, and technology.
Yeah.
And finding your inventories in each thing and whatever works for your company is going to be the one that where you start, right? And where you get traction. And you just gotta, it's a big ball. Just, push it down the hill, see where it goes.
Exactly. So before I dive into the talk, though, I wanted to just, I have a short distraction. I'm a very distracted person. I'm going to jump all around. I wanted to share with you guys a little bit what I was up to tonight. But first I need to double check. Is anybody on the program committee of this conference? Is anybody reviewing papers for this conference? Because if you are, then I can't share what I'm going to share because we're submitting something there. I guess speak up now if you are a member. I'll give you guys 10 seconds to admit that you're a grad student with one of these professors.
I've not even heard of that conference.
Okay. So it's an academic conference. It's going to be in Pittsburgh, I think in May, and double blind review. I've never had a double blind review before. And so they really want to make sure we don't reveal who we are. So that's why I just have to make sure nobody here knows about this conference and knows that I'm submitting to it. It's a very exciting piece that we've submitted here. You wouldn't think that that this would be a controversial thing, but did you know there's actually I could not find an academic paper. I was at MergeBase, I was trying to, we like to say to the world, right? Open source is everywhere, open source libraries are everywhere, software is just made from open source, Log4j and everything else, it's all open source, it's all in there, and known vulnerabilities in this stuff is going to bite you, right? I couldn't find an academic source that would support a claim that, like over 80 to 99% of an application is made from open source libraries. And so we had to go and write the paper ourselves. So, the deadline is 4 a.m. tonight. So you can see this is some data that we're doing. This is a fun file, hey? What is that? Names.sorted. Where are you? Where'd you go, Mr. Names.sorted? That's just every name of a Java file I could find in Maven Central, and then I just run it through unique, right? Because I just want I only need one hit for every name. So this is every fully qualified class name I could find in Maven Central. And then we use this to, this is what we call the universe of open source. And so then what we can do is take a given system, and if any of its names match the names in this file, we'll say, oh, well, they must be open source. They came from Maven Central. But if they didn't come in here, then they must be proprietary. They must be internal to your org. So anyway, that's what I was up to, and that's what I'll get back to after this presentation. Just, give you guys a sense of just the depths of my insanity when it comes to jar files. I've been thinking about jar files too long and too hard, and it's never going to stop. So so that's the paper we're going to submit tonight. Back to Log4j. Did anyone use fingerprints for finding Log4j? Good old SHA-1 or SHA-2 now that SHA-1's gone out of favor. Where are you, mister? So here's Log4J from Maven Central. So a lot of people, you know, you're worried, oh, maybe I have, you know, you can tell all the bad ones. All the bad ones come from before 2021-12. If it says 21-21, if it says 2021-12-09 or later, then it's probably a good one. But if it says before that, then it's probably a bad one. So one approach people were using to find Log4j on their systems, yeah, you can just hang out here. So I just downloaded that Log4j Core 2.14.1, right? So if you could just SHA-1 every file on your system, and if you ever had a SHA-1 show up of that, you know, there's we know all the versions that are vulnerable, right? The versions that are vulnerable are, you know, essentially every version on here between 2.0 beta 8. Although honestly, I tried to attack a system using that one and it didn't work. But anyway, the CVE says 2.0 beta 8. So all the way from there, pretty much to this 2.14.1. Of course, there's been a few backported fixes since then. But this is it. This is about 20 versions of the vulnerable versions. Take all the SHA-1s of those 20 versions. If you find that on your system, you're in trouble, right? Did anyone here try that approach? I'll be cruel and wait for someone to say no, I didn't.
Sounds too complicated and too slow.
Too complicated and too slow. That sounded like Amran. Was that Amran?
Maybe.
Maybe. So yeah, Ray, this is a conventional approach. I was hoping someone would say, yeah, we use that, because maybe the reason people are saying they didn't use that approach because they know it has problems, right? So I'll show you one of the problems with that approach. Would you believe me if I said you can append a space to a jar file and it's still okay? Amran believes me. Okay. He's got his camera on, he's nodding, so I can tell that he believes me. So yeah, I can, and if you didn't know this, jar files are just zip files, so you can just run them through unzip. Boom, it unzips, it's fine. Unzip is not complaining at all, but it's SHA-1 is violently different now, right? It used to be start with the number 9, and now it starts with the number E. So if you're going to use a SHA-1 approach based on these Maven Central versions, that's not going to work if people appended spaces to your jar files. So of course, we're not insane, right? We're not maniacs, and so we don't really worry about people appending spaces to our jar files. It's just not a common problem. Any questions?
I also wonder if some people rebuild the libraries basically from source, because then you'll probably get another SHA-SOM anyways.
Yes. And why would you? Why do you get a different SHA-1 if you build from source?
I don't know why, but that's my understanding.
Do you notice something on this zip file that's kind of interesting in terms of the metadata? What does it include there in terms of metadata?
Yeah, the timestamps.
Yeah, the time it was built, right? So that's recorded in the zip file. So if you were to rebuild it from scratch, which we can do actually, I'm going to go back to there, to 14.1. And I think I'm just in log. Well, should I? Yeah, sure. Let's just build it from source. It'll take a little while. Log4j, despite it being just a logging library, takes a while to build. But once it's done, we can then look at the timestamps in the zip file, and they'll be different. And so therefore, the SHA-1 will be different. There's other sources of Log4j. So Maven Central, I'd say like 99% of Log4j is going to come from Maven Central. out in the world. It's just like, that's how everyone builds it. But there are a few oddballs. For example, Red Hat and Fedora and Ubuntu and Debian, they will have Java-based systems packaged up in their ecosystem, so to speak. They have very strict policies of they have to rebuild everything from scratch before it comes in. So they have, big, massive build farms that are just building everything from scratch. And so maybe they have some system, like say, I remember like Azurius, the file sharing utility. I remember using that like 10 years ago, but it was built based on Java. Or Minecraft, like no, Minecraft would be a bad example. That's not going to be in Debian or Ubuntu, but there are Java stuff in there, and that Java stuff's going to depend on Log4j. And so if the Debian team or the Ubuntu team or the Red Hat team, if they've gone to the trouble to package all that up, then that Log4j is going to be built from scratch by Debian and Ubuntu, because they have strict, we must be able to build Ubuntu from scratch, from source. They're never going to go and use these jar files. That's against their policy. Some companies have that policy too, right? So that's that's why this fingerprint-based approach is not going to work, because the jar files themselves, right? Like if I build today and then I build a minute later, then I'm going to get a different fingerprint. Hopefully this guy will finish building soon. Does everyone hear? This is an application security workshop, right? OWASP. So we're used to watching build scripts run, right? Amran, when's the last time you watched a build script run?
I was going to say, and we'll continue right into our next monthly meetup.
Oh, this one. Oh, well, no, Log4j is not that bad. Okay, that was the longest 2 minutes, 18 seconds I've ever had in my life, but still, it wasn't that bad. So now that it's built, we have a nice, where are you, Mr. Log4j? You must be in there somewhere. Look at all these jar files it built. This is wild. Oh, Log4j core. And then in the target, it should be in there. Yeah, there he is. 214.1 jar. So we're going to do the SHA-1 sum, and compared to the one I downloaded earlier. And that's the one with the space. Maybe I should download the one without the space. Now I've got Log4js everywhere now. So there's the one with from Maven Central, there's the one with the space, and there's the one that I just built. So they're different. One thing I am curious to find out though, is their contents the same? So that's the zip file, the metadata on the zip file is causing problems for us. But what about if we don't care about the zip file metadata? What if we had a deeper, smarter technique that actually goes into the zip files and detects and looks at the class files inside? I'm just going to call them, L1 will be the one from Maven Central. Okay, you go in there. I'll do a copy. And then the one we just built from source, you can go hang out in L2. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to just unzip it and then remove the jar file, and then go into L2, same thing, unzip it, remove the jar file, and then let's just do a diff on L1 and L2. Not bad, eh? They're byte for byte identical. The class files are all identical. So we got here, that's interesting. I built from source and ended up with a completely byte identical class files. So that means maybe if we were to actually go inside the jar files and use SHA-1 or SHA-2 or whatever, fingerprints, use byte for byte analysis of the actual class files inside, then that might actually work.
Would it not depend on the version of the compiler though? Like, is bytecode guaranteed to be consistent?
I was very curious about that. And I don't know. So I thought, now, problem with this is Log4j doesn't really have a main method, so I can't execute it. I can't really, I'd have to have something that calls into it. But I do have something that is executable that we can play, where we can play with compiler variation. So let's go see. people are going to think that I paid you to ask that question, Amran, because that is exactly where I was going with this. So here's my Log4j detector, also written in Java. What's nice about it is I can just invoke it and it'll do something. I want to see if compiler variation will cause differences in the class file. So let's just go into here, into my Log4j detector. Here it is. One thing that's nice about it, this guy, most Java systems are not made in this way, but I wrote it in a way so that it had no dependencies. So because it has no dependency, it does not depend on any jar files at all to compile, I can do that. And since I can do that, I can then play with compiler variation. So we have the class files now. Just pick one of them, I guess, and just see. Java to JSON is a nice one, or Log4j detector is a nice one. Sure. I've got. So that's there. Now let me try. Let's see. Let's try doing a. I'm going to try with Java 6. I went to the trouble to make this darn thing Java 6 compatible. Yeah, so there you go, eh? The signature did change. Do I have a Java? So Java 8. If you're on old Javas, by the way, very bad. Make sure you're on the 291 of the Java 8 or newer. I think there's a 301 now too. So there you have it. I did not know. Oh, what is it complaining about? Okay. So now we're back to the F4F. That's the Java 8 one. How about Java? I've got 11, I've got 17, I've got 9. I'll just do all of them. You get different error messages, so that's kind of fun. Again, a different, yeah, so compiler variation is making a huge difference here, actually. I did not expect that, honestly. Okay, well, I mean, that establishes pretty clearly to me that you can't do the fingerprints on these things either. That's not gonna work. Did you compile? Oh, gonna have to fix that. Java 17, not allowed to return doubles with strings. Okay, but nonetheless, despite this, yeah. So we got starts with an A, starts with an X, starts with a 7, starts with F4, starts with an F9. Okay, there's another compiler variation also that I wanted to mention, even though I've already beat this horse to death. How do I do it with debug symbols? G, there you go. Okay, by default, line numbers and source. Oh, that's by default, eh? I didn't know that line numbers and source is default. I don't think that was default back when I started in Java. Huh. Learn something new every day. And but you can do G none. Okay. This is my go-to Java, like, and I'm sure they like between these guys. Well, for fun, let's do that. If people are not finding this fun, please let me know and I'll stop. So that's with that, and then this is with the G none. You know, this is hardly surprising that with debug symbols you get one thing without you get another. And then, oh, and then with debug symbols, you get even an altogether another one. Who knows what's going on there? But I was curious to see with no variation, F4F, and then what if I do the very first of the 1/8 of the 1/8 series that I've got my oldest 1/8 the things I find interesting. You guys must be all just appalled. Ha! Yeah, okay, compiler variation is even within the 1.8 series. It's a huge deal. So what are we going to do, right? We can't do fingerprints. I know it's embarrassing when the speaker already has the answer, but if anyone, please humor me and share an idea. And not Amran. Not Amran! No! Someone else! Amran has the best questions, I know.
By the way, you got really quiet all of a sudden.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah, that's better. I mean, my poor man's version of that would have been just base it on the file names, like try to find the jar files and based on the file name. But you'll also have to look inside like zip files and other jar files, because like those jar files are going to be everywhere.
Yeah, jar files inside jar files, exactly. But yeah, looking at the file names is exactly, that's going to defeat this problem very handily. The only problem with looking at the file names is it's not going to have really fine granularity, right? Because the darn Log4j team, I mean, it's a little bit hard to see, but they don't remove files. They won't remove files. They actually have a policy of not removing files. Because, you know, this is Log4j 2. It's kind of funny, actually, right? Like if, here, I'll go to this screen here, right? A lot of people did this, right? Because if you look in the Log4j jar file, let's go back to Log4j. Yeah, here we are. And all my Log4js that I've been collecting here for this talk, there is this class called JNDI Lookup, right? And so if you see it in the jar file, you can remove it. And if you remove it, it does, now you're safe. Yeah, it's such a funny thing, a software development. Like, why did they put this in here? Why do we have this thing that is so dangerous for everyone? And like, you know, probably what net 0.1% of people, I'd be surprised if it was that high, honestly. I'd be very surprised if 0.1% of systems that use Log4j were actually calling into this. That would be that's a very high estimate. And yet there it is. But the Apache Log4j team refuses to do this. So like for 99.9% of companies out there, just remove the darn JNDI lookup class, just yank this right out of the jar file, boom, you're not vulnerable anymore, right? That the whole mechanism, that attack cannot be exploited. Why won't the Log4j team do it? Like even in the latest version, right? I can download, I believe I can download Maven Central, yeah. The two, like this is it. This is two. Did they do a 2.18? No, they haven't done a 2.18. I keep an eye on this. This is the Maven Central. So they're quite authoritative, right? Like in software projects, all Java developers tend to put in the Maven coordinates. That's how they're going to specify their dependencies. So if it's not in Maven Central, nobody can use it. So this is the most recent version, and it's still going to have that JNDI lookup class. I mean, they put a bunch of configuration and flags and booleans and all sorts of stuff around it now, so that it can't really be used out of the box. But it's still in there, and why is it still in there? Anybody know? Anybody know Apache policy in this regard? If it's not in there, I'm going to be so disappointed. I'm going to feel like an idiot. No, it's there. Whew! Oh my goodness.
It's the Christmas edition.
The Christmas edition. Is that why they don't remove it? Oh, yeah. Oh, the poor Log4j team. My goodness. Yeah, like obviously someone was working on the 25th in order to have the thing built and published to.
Is there a version metadata in the jar file itself, though? Like not, you know.
There is. Yeah. They the Maven. So the Maven coordinates will be in there. But
I mean in the manifest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll have probably. I think that's just because Apache has pretty strong traditions there in that regard. It might even be policy at Apache. Now this is fun. Maven has been doing this for like probably 15 years. Maven has always been just stuffing the POM XML in just by default out of the gates. If you don't tell Maven not to do it, it'll do it. It'll just stuff that there. And there'll be a properties file as well, right? Come on, where are you? Yeah, there. So Maven has been stuffing that in as well. So that file and that other file, they will both tell you, yeah, this is 217.1. But my concern is why won't Apache remove that file? Any takers? Come on, just go for it. Now, the key, the secret to this answer is here. There, that's a huge hint.
Yeah, you cannot break compatibility, I think, within the same whatever version.
Yeah, it's against Apache's policy to like, they basically respect SEMVer, right? Semantic versioning. So, you know, if we're going to call it, if we called it 3.1 or 3.0, then sure, we can remove it. But since we're not willing to publish something called 3.0, we're not going to remove that file. The reason they won't remove that file then too is if you go in and look at it, here's the file. It's right there. The word public too, right? Like, this is a Java class. It does not, it's not meant for the public to use, right? Like, it doesn't really do much, but they're worried that some maniac out there, you know, in their own class, pretend I'm not in Log4j, pretend I'm in my own class. Oh, I'd have to, let's really pretend I'm in my own class here. Actually, I'll use this Java feature, this horrible Java feature from the very early days. Class, my class. So they're worried, right, that just some maniac in their system has done this, right? And oh, the methods. Oh, this is public, right? So I can call that. Yeah. Oh, I need a public, you know, void static my method. So yeah, they're just worried that there's some system out there, blah, that has code like this because there's nothing to stop it, right? What are you? Static is not allowed in my classes. Whatever. Java, you're being weird. And so because Apache is worried that some complete maniac is just calling into the Log4j arbitrary public classes that are in Log4j, like if they made this class protected and not public, then maybe they could yank it. But because it's public, they're just worried someone out there might be using it for who knows what reason. And so we can't remove it because we're not going to break them. It's kind of funny. The policy is we can't break the 1 in a million developers that are completely insane, but we can break, you know, millions of sites out there because of a bad bug.
But I mean, does any vendor or open source project actually do that, remove old versions of vulnerable things? Because like basically, like depending on how you define the vulnerable version, you'll have to at the extreme remove all the old versions.
Oh, yeah. I'd say so if, you know, if you're someone who builds software, right, you're gonna just be wanting to make sure like that these bad vulnerable versions, the 2.14 and earlier, are just not in your system. They're not there, right? Like, I mean, that's the goal, right?
I know, but that's not what I'm saying. Like, is there vendors or projects that actually having that situation would go into Maven Central and remove all the versions that
oh, the older
vulnerable
versions.
to
Oh, I
Log4j?
wasn't. Oh, that's not what I meant though. I meant more like, why won't they release a 2.18 that removes that class? That's more what I was talking about. Yeah, no, Maven Central is supposed to be immutable. So once I mean, in rare cases, things have been yanked from Maven Central, but they're usually only yanked from Maven Central for copyright issues. So someone has published something in Maven Central that they did not actually have the authority to publish. And so then the copyright holder goes in and you know, sends a mean email to Maven Central. It says, hey, I'm the copyright holder. This jar file can't be here. And so then Maven Central will remove it. But aside from that, Maven Central's completely meant to be immutable. Once an artifact's in there at a given coordinate, like this one is at these coordinates, then it has to be there forever. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, but I'm also thinking about like the supply chain type attacks. Like if I were to sneak in a backdoored version of Log4j, will Maven Central actually remove that?
Probably. I think they would in that case. Yeah, if it was a known malicious, like if they determined that the artifact was actually malicious, then I think they would remove it. I mean, there is probably over 1 million artifacts, if not 2 million distinct artifacts in Maven Central, right? So it is hard for them to notice that something's malicious. But if they didn't notice and there was pretty good evidence, I feel pretty confident they would remove it in that case. But I will dive back into this Log4j detection thing. So I really like, oh, and the reason I was going on and on about the file being present is that one thing you want when you're scanning your file systems, right, to detect, well, am I vulnerable, is you're going to want to look and see, well, is JNDI Lookup present? But the problem with looking for JNDI Lookup is Apache won't even remove it. So, you know, if I go to 2.17 where everything's good and I'm not vulnerable anymore, but unfortunately that JNDI Lookup class is still there. And so searching your file system for JNDI Lookup is not going to get you there. So what I decided to do in my Log4j detector, let's go there. This is just a free open source tool. You can just clone it, run it, off to the races. You don't need to talk to us at MergeBase at all. You can just, it's totally free and standalone, and probably I should be looking at the issues people are filing, but I've been too busy in the last few weeks. But what I did in this thing is, okay, drum roll, and this comes from my academic days. So my supervisor, sadly I dropped out of my PhD, but my supervisor, he had noticed something, or he had talked to people who had noticed something, that there's this thing in source code, and all source code has it. And for some crazy reason, it tends to be quite distinct. Is that the identifiers and literals in software tends to be globally unique. It's kind of a crazy idea, but it turns out to be true. So what I do is I just look for string literals in the bytecode. So for example, and it'll just, the way Java stores string literals in the class files is it does store them as a raw sequence of UTF-8 bytes. So you can just grep for that. Sure enough, right? Here, I have my Log4j sample set. Another very exciting GitHub repository is, oh, it doesn't even get on the first page. Very sad. This one, I actually, honestly, I like this GitHub repository almost more than this one, but this one has 600 stars almost, and this one only has 9 stars. So everyone, if you could please go to Log4j samples and star it, I would appreciate that. However, what's fun about Log4j samples is I can test some of these theories about Log4j and locating it. So what I'm going to do is go back to that these string literals, and let's just grep for them and see what happens. Nothing happens. Come on. Do I have to crack them open? Or is Mr. 17 just not there? Oh, there's 17. Oh, I know what. Yeah. It's zipped. It's zipped. I'm being an idiot. My mistake. Let's go into the exploded ones. Old hits, true hits. I'm going to just make a false hits. 1 per day car. 217.1. Jar. Grab a few more. And true hits. Let's get you. Okay. Forgive me for my lack of preparation here. Just need them exploded for the purposes of this exercise. There you go. Right, so it's gone and it scanned the 214.1, 217.0, 217.1, and sure enough, scanning for this string literal in the actual raw bytecode. So we're not looking for SHA-1 fingerprints anymore. We're actually looking inside the class file for a sequence of bytes, and it turns out this sequence of bytes occurs, but only in version 217 or later. And so that was the technique I ended up going with. And then, I just put these all together, right? Like, so this one is in 215, this is in 216, this is in 212.0, this is in 231. And I just went through all the Apache Git repository and just looked at the source code of every version to try and figure out some, combination of these things. And then it just turns into this horrible if statement down below to be like, well, did we see that? Did we see that? Did we see that? Did we not see that? And so if we see these things, yeah, you can just see this horrible sequence of if, else, if, else, if, else. But then that way we have, a very good a way of determining exactly what version of Log4j we're looking at, just based on these string literals, whether they occur or they don't occur. And so I can show you the Log4j detector in action here. Yeah, Log4j sample. Let's use the latest one, the 1229, and then boom. Right, and so it's just looking at all these samples and based on these byte patterns that we're seeing inside. So, this is based on the actual source code. It's based on, what the Apache Log4j team is putting into the source code, and based on that, we get very nice precision on what version is in there and not, right? So, for example, 212.2 was a backport. 210.0 is greater than 210.0 is vulnerable. 217.0 is good, and so on. And then there's more of these horrible variations to look at. For example, where are you? The true hits. I had some weird stuff in here somewhere. Where's the weird stuff? Maybe I'm just a little bit behind. Maybe I thought I had some Spring. I thought I put some Spring Boot in here. Where is it? Old hits, true hits. I guess my Spring Boot sample is not in here. I was just gonna go through some of the weird things that happen with jar files. For example, I have a sample here. Come on. Yeah, it's a jar file that starts with a shell script. So it's another thing, just need to be ready for, right? Make sure that your scanner can handle zip files that have been corrupted, and zip files and zip files and zip files and so on, all these crazy variations. And then there's shading And yeah, which I thought I had samples of those things, and Uber jars. Just, yeah, a million different ways Log4j can creep into your systems, and a million edge cases. Big headache to look for all of them. I guess, yeah, that pretty much comes to the end of the talk.
You know, if that's like looking for strings, if that's a common approach used by other scanners as well, or do they try to do something different?
I don't know. I don't. I saw a lot of fingerprint-based approaches when I was kind of surveying the competition, so to speak. I know, like, for example, I remember hearing do you guys remember that Linksys had to release the source code of their routers because people realized that Linux was in them, and Linksys had not been releasing the source of their routers. This is like 10, 12 years ago. But I remember hearing around at the time that it was string literals that busted them. Someone just took a dump, a big binary dump of the data on the router and looked for string literals that would have no reason to occur unless that was a Linux kernel. It just seems like developers love putting literals in, but they tend to put a few very globally unique literals just naturally without even thinking about it will end up in source code. Any other questions on the many exciting incarnations of Log4j? I was sad with one customer. I said, "Hey, try this tool. It's free. Just enjoy." And they wrote back. They said, "Well, we have very good inventory of all our systems, and we have SBOM files, and we keep track of everything that's in everything. And so we've got nothing to worry about." It was kind of like, it's a customer. Customer's always right. But yeah, definitely, I was like, if you say so, right? Like, you've been in this business long enough. I've seen horrible things, just horrible things. One of my favorite things, I have a blog post on it on Uber jars. Space Uber. It's software composition versus Java Uber jars. And I mean, so I'm very Java centric. I imagine there's probably 3 or 4 other people on the call today that are on the presentation that are Java centric like me. But there's all these other languages. People don't know necessarily the horrible things going on in the Java world. But for example, in Maven Central, you can put a dependency in your project, and you can say, I depend on Apache, what was it called? Naming all or something? Maven Central, Apache DS all, Maven Central. Okay, so you can say, yeah, I want this jar file. Yes, please. I think I have an example of a project that depends on that. Now, this one, it doesn't have Log4j in it. Easy. Oh, you're in source. Easy doggy. Yeah. So here's an actual project that someone built. It's a cute little system that does its own thing, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, that they had enough. Yeah, they have a dependency on Apache DS all. So I could just build this thing. Actually, if I remember right, Maven install kicks off a Spring Boot that then listens on port 8080, and port 8080 is not available on my machine, so it'll be upset. So, but if you do a Maven dependency tree, right? So like this person is telling me, sorry, yeah, we keep track of all our dependencies, and so we know exactly where Log4j is on our systems. Now, the sad thing is that this example won't have Log4j in it, but it's still an exemplar, right? Like, it's like, well, anyone could do this. So there's Apache DS all, right? And look at it, it's a terminal dependency. It doesn't depend on anything else. But what happens if you download that puppy? Let's go download it and take a look and see what's inside it. And they've got 155. Is 155 here? Good. There you are, 155. So it's 7 megabytes. That's pretty big for a jar file. Actually, I'm gonna wget it. I'm happier with wget. So what do you expect to see in there? That's it. And okay.
Some globally unique strings.
Yes, of course, including things from other libraries. So Org Apache directory, this is the project, DS, it stands for directory server. But if I keep going down, it's like SLF4J is in there. But when I did the Maven dependency tree, it didn't say that it depends on SLF4J, it just said it depends on nothing. But when I'm looking in it, and I'm looking at the actual, everyone does this, right? Everyone on the call, I'm sure when you build a Java project, you crack open the jar files just to take a look, right? How many people do this? I guess I'm just amusing myself here. You guys are a tough crowd. So there's SLF4J, there's Mina, there's Mina filter, lots of Mina stuff, more directory. Oh, good, back to directory. Whew, that's what we actually want to be in there. Okay, I'm still going. Oh, commons lying isn't there? They never said commons lying isn't there. What the heck, right? And so I mean, commons collections, right? And like Amran was saying, well, you do have the POM XML files, so you can use those. Those will tell you, you could use those to figure out what version it was, right? The POM XML, POM properties. But not everything has that actually. So for example, Bouncy Castle is in here. Right, like even Bouncy Castle's in here. And sadly, Bouncy Castle doesn't include that pom.properties or that pom.xml. So you don't really have a good way of knowing what version of Bouncy Castle there's. Here, I'll show you the secret back end of MergeBase here. This is a secret tool just for administrators. So you guys are very lucky that you get to see this. Do I have an append? Where was I? I was in Easy Buggy, right? There you are. What? No. Come on. What happened there? Yay, it worked that time. So we have a tool that will take, it looks at all the signatures in the EasyBuggy jar and it compares them against, we've gone and calculated signatures per class signatures for every class file in Maven Central. And so then I can take this this Apache DSL, take all its signatures. So I'm actually looking at the class files, not any metadata. I'm not looking at those POM XMLs or those properties files. I'm actually looking at the class files. And then based on that, be like, well, does this match with any of the other jar files from Maven Central? And then so sure enough, there we get a nice little printout. And so through this, because there was no metadata, we should be able to get the Bouncy Castle version. Oh, did the Bouncy Castle not show up? Oh, there you are. Yeah, so I'm able to see, oh, it's got Bouncy Castle 140. And it turns out Bouncy Castle 140 is like riddled with CVEs. That thing is like bringing in probably like 20 CVEs just on its own, and no metadata, no way to know that, right? Like if you punch in Apache DSL and say, are there any CVEs attached with Apache DSL, right? Like nobody knows this. Nobody is going to say, oh yeah, lots of CVEs, because the CVEs are all filed against BC-prop. So similar reason, this is why I did the Log4J detector the way I did based on the string literals, because there's just weird shit out there. There's just really weird jar files out there, and they're uploaded to Maven Central, and you actually honestly have no idea that they're built, that they are essentially a blended smoothie of a bunch of other jar files.
I mean, this sounds, at least to an extent, a familiar, or at least should be, familiar process for companies that make software. But if I I'm a customer of a company that makes software, like I don't make software, I've got no idea about any of these tools or scanners or whatnot. Like, what do I do? How do I find all the instances of Log4j apart from essentially relying on my vendors to tell me?
Well, this is what I found very amusing about the Log4j detector when I made it, is that you can see people in forums saying, I ran Log4j detector against your tool, and it says that you guys are vulnerable. Can you please do something about it? Yeah, you would see it in the customer forums for, here, I have to put quotes around it. And let's see if we can find one of these. There's so much about Log4j on Google, but yeah, if you do that, you will find forums for products where people are saying, help, Log4j detector found it. Now, you know, we can make a one-off just focused on one CVE. That's great. But what are you going to do about the whole software supply chain in its totality? I don't know. Despite being a co-founder of a software supply chain security startup.
And the ultimate question, Julius, did you run Log4j detector against Log4j detector?
Oh, let's run it again. We did run it against ourselves. And sure enough, we had Log4j in our thing. But yeah, does it find it against itself? Sure, let's do that. Let's end the evening with Log4j detector. Oh, come on. Oh, you're up a directory. I'll use the latest version against itself, but then scan everything. Yay, congratulations, you're not vulnerable. Thank you, Amaran. So yeah, that's a wrap. Maybe we'll
There's a question from Scott. Wouldn't that be a good case for reviewing processes for your third-party management, 3 PM, sourcing legal counterparts if you're not a software development shop, but using software and worried about Log4j?
Yeah, because that was really your question, right? Like, hey, if I'm not
well, the first
software
one, yeah,
development processes, how do I know I'm not using some kind of vendor software, or maybe the guy in marketing is using some open source and it's not even a vendor, right? Maybe they're using something.
Maybe they've installed Minecraft.
Yeah, I like this whole problem of turtles on top of turtles on top of turtles, right? It's a bit overwhelming, honestly. It kind of stresses me out. I mean, as an AppSec software supply chain startup, it's exciting, but as a human in the world, it's kind of stressful.
Yeah, there's a GitHub repo that's got all the CVEs that spawn from the CWEs. It's just massively long.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like, I think of this whole thing as almost like earthquake preparedness, right? And people will be like, well, should we really earthquake proof all our elementary schools? If you think about it, kids are only in their elementary schools about 1/6 of their lives, right? It's 9 to 3 PM, not on weekends, not at Christmas holiday, not on summer break, right? They're not in those schools, those old rickety brick buildings, right? So, the risk isn't that high. But man, when a really bad earthquake hits, right? It's just awful. And I mean, obviously Log4j scale vulnerabilities aren't as bad as earthquakes or volcanoes, but it's kind of a similar thing. It's I feel like as an industry, we're not really prepared. I actually was kind of impressed with the Log4j situation with how fast the information got out and how quickly everyone started patching or just ripping that JNDI lookup class, because you could just scan your file system. People even had stuff that would hot patch. It would actually remove JNDI lookup in a running JVM. It would attach to a running JVM and tell the JVM, please remove this bytecode, and then and so you could patch it on the file system and on your running system without a restart. Yeah, so in terms of information getting out and everyone scrambling, it was pretty good. But I still, like the shoe hasn't dropped yet, right? Like I think like in a year, maybe or maybe in 2 years, the congressional report on some poor company that just got severely breached will be issued, just like it was for Equifax. I mean, if you remember, the Equifax vulnerability happened. It was, I think the vulnerability was published in March. And then I think Equifax was breached in May because of some old Solaris boxes that they were actually running AppSec tools against their boxes, but the AppSec tool, they forgot to put in the flag that says do a recursive scan. So it just scanned the root directory. They're like, scan root, not recursively. And so, and this is all coming from the congressional report. So on the Solaris boxes, on Sparks, I think they were actually Sparks, like really old boxes in Equifax, the app scan was a misconfigured app scan ran against root. And so they thought they were patched, but they weren't. So the breach happened in May, like 3 months after the initial publication of the CVE. They told the world that they were breached in September, right? So it's like March, and then in May, the attack. Then in September, it hits the news. In October, Anna Maria Tremonti, CBC The Current, is actually having a panel on the radio that I'm listening to as I'm driving to work about Apache Struts. And then a year after that, in October of 2018, the US congressional report on the Equifax breach was released, right? And so I feel like we're in the same sort of cloud at the moment. Like a lot of us are like, whew, oh my God, close call. But unfortunately, the shoe's going to drop and the tide's going to go out and more cliches are going to be said, and we're going to see, who's left standing.
Along those lines, thanks for creating the open source project. A couple things I'd like to say is, one is it kind of goes back to creating software where there's secure defaults, right? And not software where it's insecure by default, because that's really the root cause of what Log4Shell is, right? And also doing input validation on your things. Don't trust user input before you go send it to that, right? Those are the two key root cause items. So, trying to get people that develop software aligned around those patterns. And then also, like commending things like GitHub for having, like Dependabot, right? And some of the other scanning solutions available for those people that want to do open source development for free, right? That's another really good thing to just keep shouting at the mountaintops, like, if you're doing these things, here's the known good to go do, right?
Although I have some sad news about Dependabot. Dependabot's awesome.
But, not transient dependencies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I was sort of piping up about that when Jim Manico was talking. Sorry, just in as my fake account. Now you
Jim
all know.
Manico doesn't talk, he raves.
Yeah, he
well,
raves.
yeah, when he was raving.
Fresca in him, and wow, yeah, I've actually seen him give a talk in a swimsuit at Kalahari, which is a water park in Ohio. They have a big conference called Code Mash, which is really cool. If you guys ever want to come this way and check it out.
So I made a repository here, and I enabled Dependabot, and in this one, it's just direct dependency, right? Like, okay, Log4j core, boom, I depend on you. Tell me what you think, Dependabot. And Dependabot's like, right? Dependabot's right away is like freaking out. Dependabot. It's like, Log4j, bad, right? Yeah. Good work, Dependabot. But then I did Log4j transitive, and like here, I mean, I'll just clone this, but you can see Dependabot's fine with it. Like, Dependabot has absolutely zero awareness of transitive dependencies. So I was sad about that. And
Yeah.
if anyone happens to know anyone at Microsoft, tell them they should contact MergeBase, because we know how to fix this for them.
There's a guy named Ken. Last name might start with a J that you might want to.
Oh, yeah, send me an email or an E introduction if you don't mind. That would be
Oh,
lovely.
yeah, sure. Yeah, he works there. I don't know if he's on that. I don't think he's on that team.
But sure enough, I mean, you can see this one. There it is. It's got Log4j.
Right.
Transitive. It's a Twilio dependency. Hey, we were talking about Twilio earlier today, weren't we? And you know, it's an older. I'm sure Twilio has put out a new version of this that's not vulnerable. But if you're depending on the old one, you're going to be sucking in Log4j transitively. And sure enough, if I do the Maven install, you know, there it is. So if I build this WAR file and deploy it, I've got Log4j core. It's just an example where I just want people to be aware that Dependabot has absolutely zero ability to deal with transitive dependencies. But it's still, you know, the direct dependencies is still a very good start, but it's like kind of like maybe a quarter of the picture, because in the Java world and the NPM world, and with NPM, Dependabot's going to be fine because the lock file is going to have all the transitives, and so they can scan that. But in Java, there is no lock files, so Dependabot's kind of, they've got nothing. Anyway, small diversion there. Sorry, it's just throwing shade on Dependabot and on what's his name? Gray Barker, I think, was the guy who started it and got acquired by GitHub.
Well, I want to thank you for your fantastic little demonstration.
Oh, you're just flattering me. You're stop.
I want to give you some claps. Thank you so much. This was great. Being able to watch you walk through all of this and go through the various means that other people went through with fingerprinting and all that sort of stuff. So it was really cool to see how you came up with a solution for it. So I know that everyone here enjoyed it. So yeah, a big round of applause for you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much, guys. That was really fun.
Yeah. So we're back again on third Thursday of February. We'll be announcing our speakers shortly. So looking forward to catching you all then. So thank you all for attending today.